James Brayshaw, Billy Brownless. This is Triple M's Rush Hour, and Damien Barrett is in the studio to chat round 7 of AFL action.
Wrapping up the weekend of footy.
Get Purple in here and discuss footy.
This is Damo's recovery session.
Well, speaking of recovery,
yes.
Fat's having a recovery. He's having to draw himself out
Now we can talk footy, Jim.
after being up in Sydney. And look at him, old Suki Lala.
No, we's were robbed.
Oh, you're not going back down that path.
We's were robbed,
Of
Damien.
course he is.
I was at the ground. I thought it was touch because I couldn't hear it. I went and sat down with the members.
You made it to the game
I
eventually?
did. Finally got there at half time. Missed. Didn't see the VFL.
No. Well, that had finished before the plane took off, I think. Hasn't it?
We got delayed. But anyway, that was, you could tell it was more than 15.
Yeah,
metres.
you could.
And they've come out and said it, but they should have wrapped it up in that first.
You know what
last
hit
half.
you more than the club?
What?
The karma bus.
Why?
Yeah.
Because you were crowing
You
that the
were.
Mark Blitzarv's non-decision in
Play
round
on,
2
play
against
on,
Zach
yeah.
Bailey
That's it.
Play on.
was the right call.
It was.
It's come back to get
It
you, Bill.
eventually gets you.
I tell you what else, James Rowbottom. Thank God the siren rang. If the game goes 2 more seconds,
He's
he is
holding the ball.
ball.
Yeah.
Joel goes back and kicks that.
Yeah.
very unlucky.
The thing with the Cameron one, Purple, that I didn't get is why the umpire decided to say play on almost
Straight
as it
away.
left the boot.
Yeah.
You got to wait and see how long the ball travels, don't you, before you make that
I've
call.
listened back to it a few times. People have sent it to me. I thought at the time I heard him say touch. Now, I listened back to what I heard at
I
the
thought
time.
it was touch.
I can't make that out clearly now.
Okay, so for me, it's like it hasn't travelled far enough, so it's play on. And I'm watching it going, well, you haven't worked out how far the ball's travelled for a start.
Yeah.
But secondly, what would have been wrong with one of the other umpires blowing his whistle and going, actually,
Yeah.
I'm overruling because I had a good view of it. That's more than 15 metres. That's a mark. He's going back and taking a shot.
That could happen.
I mean,
yeah.
it should have happened.
Yeah, it should have.
Because in the end, there's no saying Jezza would have kicked it, by the way.
No, it
because it
wasn't.
would have been after the siren, so he wouldn't have been able to run around.
Would it been after the
Yeah,
siren?
there was
By the
6
time you
seconds. By the time he
sorted it.
stood up again or was protesting the mark,
You
there
know
was
what
6
would have happened?
seconds.
He would have played on siren, would have gone, it would have been no kick.
It could have been that way. Yeah.
But anyway, look, it's good that they come out and acknowledge.
Yep.
Yeah.
But that's cold comfort for the team that copped it in the neck. Anyway, I'm with you, Purple. That's karma bus for round 2, so
Yeah, it is.
sucked in.
Cold.
Fizz.
Do we want to keep talking about some bigger
Yes, please.
picture issues, Jim?
Yeah.
Mark McGowan, no crowd there
Oh, my God.
at the Derby yesterday.
Derby.
In Perth.
Well, what are there? Nearly 2 million people in Western Australia. He's finally run out of people to blame. Oh, Marcos, hasn't he? He's been like Rick Darling. He's deflected everything that well.
Rick Darling.
Everything's gone to third man and fine leg, but eventually he's run out.
So
It's his own quarantine program. You've
Yes,
got to
no.
take ownership of it and actually put your hand up and say, we cocked it up.
Yep.
$2.5 million. Is that what it costs the West Coast Eagles?
Yeah, well, it's hard to know exactly, but Trevor Nisbet, the Chief Executive Officer of the Eagles, is talking well north of $1 million, Bill, so you can work out how high it does go. But
Geez,
it's a
Freo were
big impost.
disappointing in that game.
Weren't they? Yeah.
I thought that was a really winnable game for them.
Yeah, I was very disappointed with what they
Yep.
dished up, given the amount of injuries at West Coast across the entire ground. I mean, their back line was smashed, wasn't it? The 2 big guys were out, McGovern and Barras, and Hearn was a late out or wasn't played, so
they
he's
didn't.
still equal on 290 with Dean Cox.
Oh,
and-
was he?
yeah.
Oh, you don't see it at the Manly.
Oh,
Pier.
Bill's catching up on everything to do with
They
this
won
round.
the game.
So,
Coast
yeah,
easily,
that
Bill.
11 straight for the West Coast
Yeah.
Eagles. That's a domination.
It is now. I mean, it's not even a rivalry
No.
if you've got that sort of lopsided scoreline.
It's
So no, they were good. Although my doubt about West Coast, Jim, for what it's worth, remains the away
Oh, of
record,
course.
and that's now a statement
that's
of
fair
fact,
enough.
not even an opinion. Really, the way they're going, we may as well stick with the positives. I reckon you go back to Friday night for the main positive out of the round. Richmond just said, "Hey, you want to come at us? Here you go." And Western Bulldogs copped it, Bill, didn't they? They
did.
and we discussed this pretty at length on Saturday on the Saturday Rub. But it's just impressive way they. Yeah, we did. It's impressive the way they got their season back on track. And you take a 4-3 scoreline at this stage of the season for them. And just the roles that certain people played. I know you've had a fair bit of time for this guy in the past, Jim, Liam Baker. He's well established already. But
How good.
just the way he, just played a new role in the forward line. Just didn't get it a lot of times, but every single time he got it, something happened. Tom Lynch responded beautifully.
I did, and I was very, very impressed with Trent Cotchin in that third quarter. Now, a lot of people, he's one of those blokes that seems to draw criticism.
Yeah.
I don't know why, because I've always admired him as a player, but he's one of those blokes that people tend to criticise for whatever reason. But when that game was on the line and about the 2-minute mark of that third quarter, I think he had 9 possessions in that term, and 7 of them were contested, 4 clearances. I thought he was superb.
No, he was. And unfortunately for him, he's going to miss some time, and it's another soft tissue injury, hamstring specifically. And obviously at his age and stage and history with such problems, to me, Bill, it has to be 3 or 4 weeks.
Well, it will. And the Cats Friday night. Hey, is Dusty back, or is there any?
Yeah, Dusty's back, and Dusty
what a shame.
will be back.
Thought there might have been a COVID, something happened over there in New Zealand, and Dusty got stuck there. So he's back, is he?
Yeah, and Damien Hardwick has already declared him a starter, Bill. So even though he has had that foot issue as well as the concussion,
the Cats didn't get back till 2:30 Sunday morning. Okay. Flew into Avalon, so they're going to be. It's a quick backup, isn't it?
Not far from Avalon to Geelong, though.
No, but 2:30 a.m. back, and then they've got to play again Friday. Interesting.
Have a listen to Fat.
They're pretty
He's already
elite,
making
elite
excuses.
athletes. You can,
What the hell are we dealing with?
you can catch up on sleep pretty easily these days. can't you?
Sunday,
What
they
else they
play
got to
Friday.
do? Train and play.
Ned Kelly rolled into the SCG late in that game, didn't he? And just robbed them.
Oh, no. There's something wrong with him. There's honestly something wrong with him.
I didn't know where he was going with it.
Good thing we can edit this. Yeah.
Brisbane Lions,
Aren't we live?
they're back, aren't they, officially? And the worry they had at the start of the year when they had to stay in Melbourne, and then they had that karma bus go against them in round 2, Bill. They've got it back together now, haven't they, Jim? And what
Beat a
they
bloody
did
good
to
opponent.
Port Adelaide,
Wiped
yeah.
them off
Yeah.
the ground.
Yeah, I couldn't see the ease with which that win came before it happened. And when Charlie Cameron's doing the motorbike celebrations, you know he's back, and he's back to All-Australian, 4 goals in that occasion. Harris Andrews got played back into complete All-Australian form, the way he'd had a rough couple of weeks by his standards, and he was getting exposed one-on-one, but he was just back to reading the play like he has done so beautifully now for 3 or 4 years.
What about Brisbane, Geelong, Ballarat and all that? Now they're going to Perth this week. They travel, don't they? They got to travel a long way. I reckon they're the most travelled side.
Bill, they played every game at home last year.
Well,
So maybe they're due to do some travelling.
well, they are, but that's a long. They're travelling everywhere. They're going everywhere.
Just back on the Swans, we do need to acknowledge the fact that they're 5-2 now, Bill, and they've beaten a good team in the Cats and did it the hard way and did it from 28 points down in the first half. And once again, it was the kids. It was a different batch of kids. Love the way that Warner's going about it.
Maybe Warner's good.
Yeah. And just the way they held on, didn't they? Rowbottom kicked a crucial goal. So
You know, it's
Little
good.
Papa.
Yeah, Pap. You know, it's good. Tom Hickey, 4th club. He's on one leg. He had the biggest knee bandage you ever seen. He just kept going. He was really good, Big Tom.
he's been crucial, hasn't he? So, look, I've been very critical of Carlton, and what they did yesterday was great. So they need to be acknowledged.
Yes.
It was against Essendon. I still have a question mark over the credentials of that team, but it was a great game to watch as a neutral observer, and they handled the situation well. It was a high-scoring affair. They were
behind often in the game and fought to get in front. No, I agree with that. I've been more critical of them than anyone, but because you just want to see that every week.
Yeah.
Don't you? I mean, if they're meant, this is such a long time these poor club's supporters have had to bloody cop it.
Yep.
So now they're meant to be emerging, Carlton. You want to see that as the standard level of output every week.
And I feel we've got a standard level of performance now from Harry Mackay, don't we?
Oh, yeah.
Again, it's not a secret that he's going to be very, very good, but he's now delivering every week. And he kicked 4 goals under duress yesterday, Bill, and he's second now on the Coleman medal behind Taylor Walker. The third person there's a bit of a surprise, isn't it? In that it is Cale Hooker with 21, so he's having a good year as well.
They only had 5 goal kickers yesterday, Essendon.
And
Carlton had 10 individual ones. They had 5.
And he kicked 5 himself,
he did.
Kale. So, good result there. Sam Walsh is going beautiful.
Superstar.
I love him.
Suns, I know you covered the game on Saturday, Bill, Jim, but the Suns were really good, weren't they?
No, they were. They
Really,
bloody
really
were.
good.
No doubt about it. And when they're good to watch.
So what they just run and there was a bloke that kicked goals for him. I'd never heard of him.
Ronnie Corbett.
Oh, Ronnie got and clunked it too.
He was
took
really good, wasn't he?
beautiful
Yeah.
clunks.
Heard of Ronnie Corbett.
Lukosius, beautiful user off halfback. No, I like that. I like what they did. Although we get to the other side of things, we're taking a break. Oh, poor old Bartholomew across the desk here.
Oh, Ramsey.
Jeez, he's as flat as a biscuit.
He is, isn't
He
he?
came in under the door to use one of Spud's great sayings.
Yes.
All right, more after this.
It's the Rush Hour, Triple M. JB and Bill, this is Triple M's Rush Hour, and Damien Barrett is in the studio. We've heard of his positives from round 7, Jim. Now it's the dreaded negatives.
All right, so we're starting with Collingwood. Muds, get it out of the way so Rabs can get a smile back onto his mush.
We might start there. We might go to them in the middle of the conversation and finish with them too. They are going horrendously, aren't they? 1-6 now after the 7 rounds, Bill. There's no system to what they're doing.
What is the problem, Jim? You saw them live.
Well, they've got good players out, but lots of clubs have, so you can't make that the excuse.
But their list maybe is not that good.
No, well, that's true. And forward to centre circles, Bill, they are horrendous. There is no connection between their midfield group and the players forward of the ball at all. So they keep getting it in, but it just keeps rebounding out of there. They don't look dangerous forward to the centre at all.
They don't. And when you've got Jordan De Goey in your team, who, as we know, 3 years ago was being touted as the next big thing, it just hasn't transpired that way. He's so out of form, it's not funny, as is Darcy Moore, who now has had 3 weeks of experimentation as a forward, Bill. It just hasn't worked. And when you get him, and was it 3 kicks, Jim? I think when you called the game, was it as few as 3 kicks for the entire game? You just have to abort that plan now.
The only thing I will say about him, and I think it's the same with Larkey and Zerha for North, playing forward in an ordinary team. Well, you know, Fat.
Yeah,
it's hard enough to get it forward of the ball, but when your mob are really fly blown, it's bloody hard.
It is. No, totally. And I don't know, it hasn't worked. He might have to go back. But you're right. But then you know what else is bad? When it comes out like it does, and the mids are going, hey, and then the backs go, hey, boys.
Exactly.
So and then all of a sudden everyone's just blueing. Like, and they're going, what's going on here? And the coach is scratching his head. So.
He is, and they're in a mess, aren't they? I know they tried to get on the same page last week, off-field, with comments made about Nathan Buckley, but to me it was just almost an exercise where they were trying too hard to convince, I reckon, themselves as much as the footy public that they were on the same page, and as such, I think there were more mixed messages coming out yet again. And it's pretty simple to me now, Jim and Bill, that you do not need any more matches. There's 15 games remaining in 2021. They know whether Nathan Buckley can coach or not. And I don't know why they need to go through that. So in that regard, bring forward this timeline that they're saying, because this game against North Melbourne on the weekend, if he wins it, it means nothing. If it loses it, well, we know what happens then, don't we, by way of the scrutiny being ramped up even more.
It always amazes me, Purple, when clubs allow a coach to get into the final year of their contract, because it just welcomes all of this. As soon as the coach's in the last year, every time the poor bastard fronts up to a presser, he gets asked about his future. Yeah. It's just how it works. So normally you'd come back a year and work it out from there. So you got to think there's been an arrangement made one way or the other. Otherwise, why would you do it?
But it's done.
Well, either that it's done and he's staying, or it's done that he's not going to stay, one way or the other.
Well, given that we're only now a week and a half or 2 weeks into Mark Corder's permanent role as president, I don't know how a board can make that decision with that state of flux in that position. I mean, it took him and the board nearly 3 months to work out who was going to be the leader after Eddie Maguire resigned. And look, that's a long time, given that Eddie had been there 23 years. I know that the shock of the resignation did hit them, but at the same time, the posturing and the division on the board, Jim, and I don't care what they say about we are not divided, they have been and they remain divided. So you've got that issue at the very top of the club, as well as everything else filtering down to Nathan Buckley as part of the overall problem. Crowds are an issue, Bill. Yeah. Crowds are an issue, and they get very defensive about this, but they are an issue.
What was there? 24,000 there on Saturday.
Is that all it was? Yeah. Well, that says a lot. We touched on the Brisbane Lions beating the Sydney Swans, but Port Adelaide just in this negative bracket out of the weekend. Just a little bit of West Coast about them, I reckon, Jim. Their only previous loss was against West Coast, again as an away venue, but that game was bad, and so too was what they dished up at the Gabba on the weekend. So I've lost some faith in that club, Bill, because I thought they were close to premiership certainties until that moment. But I've seen a few things in that game, and you add the West Coast game to it. They've got as many doubts about them as the other teams around
Graham Hick.
Oh, you think the flat track bully? I see. I'll tell you, our great, analyst that we had on this station for years, Gary Lyon, and he's now obviously over the other mob, but very good at it. He always used to say with St Kilda on the weekend, that's almost worse than the previous 2 weeks. It is. Because
you can play
you can play like that. Yeah. So where's it been? I mean, that's what Brett Ratner won, in fact. Brett Ratner will be sitting there going, right, so where's that?
Yeah. At quarter time, what?
Where's that been? I mean, seriously. So they've got your best and your worst. You've got to try and narrow it down. They were great on the weekend. I don't know who they got this week, the Saints Rabbits, or are they playing me? But, I mean, they're a bit like
Gold Coast.
So a bit like Carlton, that's got to be their standard of output.
And you do empathise a little bit because of the unavailability until the weekend just gone of Paddy Ryder. It was crucial him coming back in, the Saints we're talking about here.
Yes.
So, Western Bulldogs, look, they didn't have Gardner down back, and while he's not the biggest name in the club, Bill, he does allow them You don't agree with what I'm about to say here, Bill?
Have a look at Fat's eyes.
Ryan
Right.
Gardner,
I think he's
very
been-
good player.
Well, Ryan Gardner and also Bailey Williams being unavailable, it changes your
And
backline
English and
dynamic.
Dunkley.
And they're the backline guys, and then you have
he's
the
talking
those
about-
other guys
No,
out.
but there were significant outs they had, Fat. So don't be shaking your stupid bald head.
Hey, Tim English a very big out, and so is Dunkley very, very important.
They were showing up, weren't they, the Bulldogs, ultimately?
were.
Against it's the best team, admittedly, but they were
They were
showing
going
up.
all right, weren't they? And then they just turned the screws and away they went.
And Hawthorn.
Geez, they were everywhere, don't they? They just get into everything. They're annoying, Richmond.
Yeah.
They're there.
No, they're good. That's what they are.
Well, but they're annoying because there's always 3 or 4 of them. Out. They're all over you. They're all over you, and you make mistakes, and then you stuff it up.
And Hawthorn had a really bad loss to the Saints. So their 2 wins this year, Adelaide against...
Came from the Clouds.
Came from the Clouds, and also all the way back to round 1 against Essendon, again, came from the Clouds. So their winning margin totals 4 points. Their losing margin is pretty bad, and they're right down the bottom, Bill, and in 16th place on the ladder.
I have them in the North Melbourne, Collingwood now. You know, I have them in that bucket. I just don't think that they're actually that good.
No, they're not.
No.
And so, you know, I don't
But
expect them to
we
have a
thought
win-loss much beyond that.
We thought that at the start of the year.
Yeah.
You had them down the bottom 4, didn't you?
It is starting to shape that way, isn't it, for what
Well, you
they're
had
doing?
North, Hawthorn. Didn't have Collingwood.
Adelaide, probably, I had down there.
Adelaide, yeah.
Yeah. And Gold
and
Coast,
probably
maybe.
Gold Coast, although
Yeah.
they've had a good fortnight, haven't they now? So
They have.
I reckon because they've had a win against the Swans as well.
Hey, I need to give credit while we're jumping on the back of this to a man that doesn't often get a lot of credit, and that is Razor Ray Chamberlain. I'll tell you why. My young bloke played in a Hampton Rovers game on the weekend, under 14s. Finished the game, came over to me and said, "Guess what, Dad?" I said, "What?" Under 12 games before us at Mentones and Beads, umpired by a young bloke and Ray Chamberlain.
Fairningham.
So it was
Under
one,
12s.
one of Ray's proteges, and he said, "Right, I'll come down and umpire the game with you."
What a guy.
So an under
Nice
12, and
gesture.
then did the Essendon Carlton game that afternoon, I think. So well done. I think that's an amazing thing. He took this young ump under his wing and said,
Yep.
"Right, I'll come and umpire with you."
Yep.
I reckon that's brilliant. So
well, was
credit
he-
to Razor
was-
Ray.
Was he the tallest there? I don't know. He probably
wasn't a lot bigger than the other under 12s. I love that.
No, that's good. Well
Community Umpire Week
Yes.
in the week just gone. So that's a really nice
All right,
gesture.
so what do we got? Anything left before we bus it?
Bus.
Well, we might just bus it. We'll get the bus. Those buses we had at Carlton, Bill, we'll get that one back out of there and we'll send a double bus, a second bus down to the Collingwood set up there.
Double decker. London style.
Yeah, and maybe a couple of trailers on as well. There's a few things going on down
What's
there.
happening this
Righto.
week? What will happen? What are you reading? The
Nothing
tea
happened
leaves.
this week. They've bought themselves at least the game against North Melbourne on the weekend, which is a Saturday game, a late game at Marvel Stadium on the when I say late afternoon game.
North, okay.
They're okay against
for
Melbourne.
2.5 quarters, and then they'll pour
Could
up.
they beat Collingwood?
If they played similarly
would
to what they
happen?
did yesterday, they're going to be in the game.
And what would happen?
That would be very ugly for everyone at Collingwood.
Wow.
Yes, it would bring forward decisions that they tell us are going to be made later in the season.
Any other
Bill.
bus?
No, we're just
the
all
one?
focused there. Yeah, we've
umpires?
taken it away from.
I'm driving one to the umpires.
Are you, Bill?
Yeah.
Have a listen to him, will you?
Oh, not 15, fair dinkum. I was going to walk out on the ground and step it out myself.
Just cop that karma bus yourself.
Yeah,
Bill.
that's it. But if you're not a nuffy, that stuff doesn't happen.
It's not my fault.
All right, Manly.
Manly.
So just get off the beach. You
Where
and
I-
Stevie.
Where was the other joint we went to?
Bondi.
Yeah, no,
Rose
that's
Bay?
Manly. Rose Bay Hotel.
That's not your sort of demographic.
Well, they got a tab there, a little
Oh,
dingy
that is
tab.
You have those beautiful harbour city in the world, and you end up in a tab.
Front
That's
bar
it.
tab.
Watching
That's it.
Musselbrook races.
No, we're on a Sapphire Coast.
No, you would have ended up at Turf Fontaine.
Grey Field or something it's called.
Damo's recovery session.
What's trending unusual is coming up next, Jim, and it's actually worth doing this segment, I'm telling you.
It didn't want to be.
Well, we get to play a certain song, so that's why we're doing it. It's coming up next. It's the Rush Hour at Triple M.